Reading through the Bible in one year, December 8th, 2nd Chronicles chapter 8, 3rd John, Habakkuk chapter 3, and Luke 22. At the end of 20 years, during which Solomon had built Yahweh's temple and his own palace, Solomon had rebuilt the cities Hiram gave him and settled Israelites there. Solomon went to Hamath Zobah and seized it. He built Tadmor in the wilderness, along with all the storage cities that he built in Hamath. He built Upper Beth Horon and Lower Beth Horon, fortified cities with walls, gates, and bars. Baalath and all the storage cities that belonged to to Solomon. Definitely not to Sodom. To Solomon, all the chariot cities, the cavalry cities, and everything Solomon desired to build in Jerusalem, Lebanon, or anywhere else in the land of his dominion. As for all the people who remained of the Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites, who were not from Israel, their descendants who remained in the land after them, and those the Israelites had not completely destroyed, Solomon imposed forced labor on them. It is this way today. But Solomon did not consign the Israelites to be slaves for his work. They were soldiers, commanders of his captains, and commanders of his chariots and his cavalry. These were King Solomon's deputies, 250 who supervised the people. Solomon brought the daughter of Pharaoh from the city of David to the house he had built for her. For he said, "My wife must not live in the house of King David of Israel, because the places the ark of Yahweh has come into are holy." At that time, Solomon offered burnt offerings to Yahweh on Yahweh's altar that he had made in front of the portico. He followed the daily requirement for offerings according to the commandment of Moses for Sabbaths, new moons, and the three annual appointed festivals: the festival of unleavened bread, the festival of weeks, and the festival of shelters, booths, or tabernacles. They're tents, basically. It's so that people can remember the time when they were in the wilderness. According to the ordinances of his father David, he appointed the divisions of the priests over their service, of the Levites over their responsibilities to offer praise and to minister before the priests following the daily requirement, and of the gatekeepers by their divisions with respect to each temple gate. For this had been the command of David, the man of God. They did not turn aside from the king's command regarding the priests and the Levites concerning any matter or considering the treasuries. All of Solomon's work was carried out from the day the foundation was laid for Yahweh's temple until it was finished. So Yahweh's temple was completed. At that time, Solomon went to Ezion Geber and to Elath on the seashore in the land of Edom. So Hiram sent ships to him by his servants, along with crews of experienced seamen. They went with Solomon's servants to Ophir and took from there 17 tons of gold and delivered it to King Solomon. Now John chapter 3. Again, as we're in a new book, let's read the introduction. 3rd John supplements statements on Christian hospitality in 2nd John. It applauds a Christian named Gaius for living out the teachings of the apostles. He had welcomed traveling Christian missionaries into his home, while condemning Diotrephes, a selfish church leader who not only refused to help these itinerant godly teachers, but also had slandered and opposed those who disagreed with him. This book demonstrates that pride can divide Christians if they are not living by God's word. To avoid the dual dangers of false teaching and division within the church, believers should practice the dual virtues of love and discernment. The letter was probably written by the Apostle John in the late 1st century AD. Let's begin. The elder, to my dear friend Gaius, whom I love in the truth. Dear friend, I pray that you are prospering in every way and you are in good health, just as your whole life is going well. For I was very glad when fellow believers came and testified to your fidelity to the truth, how you are walking in the truth. I have no greater joy than this, to hear that my children are walking in truth. Dear friend, you are acting faithfully in whatever you do for the brothers and sisters, especially when they are strangers. They have testified to your love before the church. You will do well to send them on their journey in a manner worthy of God, since they set out for the sake of the name, capital N name. This is the character in nature, the um, the truth of Jesus, accepting nothing from pagans. Therefore, we ought to support such people so that we can be co-workers with the truth. I wrote something to the church, but Diotrephes, who loves to have first place among them, does not receive our authority. This is why, if I come, I will remind him of the works he is doing, slandering us with malicious words. And he is not satisfied with that. He not only refuses to welcome fellow believers, but he even stops those who want to do so and expels them from the church. Dear friend, do not imitate what is evil, but what is good. The one who does good is of God, and the one who does evil has not seen God. Everyone speaks well of Demetrius, even the truth itself. And we also speak well of him, and you know that our testimony is true. I have many things to write to you, but I don't want to write to you with pen and ink. I hope to see you soon, and we will talk face to face. Peace to you. The friends send you greetings. Greet the friends by name. Now Habakkuk chapter 3. A prayer of the prophet Habakkuk, according to the Shigionoth. I'm guessing, I'm doing my best with my interpretation of that, or rather my pronunciation. Yahweh, I have heard the report about you. Yahweh, I stand in awe of your deeds. Revive your work in these years. Make it known in these years. In your wrath, remember mercy. Our God comes from Teman, the Holy One from Mount Paran. His splendor covers the heavens, and the earth is full of his praise. His brilliance is like light. Rays are flashing from his hand. This is where his power is hidden. Plague goes out before him, and pestilence follows in his steps. He stands and shakes the earth. He looks and startles the nations. The age-old mountains break apart, and ancient hills sink down. His pathways are ancient. I see the tents of Cushan in distress. The tent curtains of the land of Midian tremble. Are you angry at the rivers, Yahweh? Is your wrath against the rivers? Or is your fury against the sea when you ride on your horses, your victorious chariot? You took the sheath from your bow. The arrows are ready to be used with an oath. You split the earth with rivers. The mountains see you and shudder. A downpour of water sweeps by. The deep roars with its voice, and it lifts its waves high. Sun and moon stand still in their lofty residence, at the flash of your flying arrows, at the brightness of your shining spear. You march across the earth with indignation. You trample down the nations in wrath. You come out to save your people, to save your anointed. You crush the leader of the house of the wicked and strip him from foot to neck. You pierce his head with your own spears. His warriors storm out to scatter us, gloating as if ready to devour the weak. You tread the sea with your horses, stirring up the vast water. I heard, and I trembled within. My lips quivered at the sound. Rottenness entered my bones. I trembled where I stood. Now, I must walk quietly for the day of distress to come against the people invading us. I said that wrong. Now I must quietly wait for the day of distress to come against the people invading us. Though the fig tree does not bud, and there is no fruit on the vines, though the olive crop fails and the fields produce no food, though the flocks disappear from the pen, and there are no herds in the stalls, yet I will celebrate in Yahweh. I will rejoice in the God of my salvation. Yahweh, my Lord, is my strength. He makes my feet like those of a deer and enables me to walk on mountain heights. For the choir director on stringed instruments. Let's conclude with Luke 22 now. The festival of unleavened bread, which is called Passover, was approaching. The chief priests and the scribes were looking for a way to put him to death, but they were afraid of the people. Then Satan entered Judas, called Iscariot, who was numbered among the 12. He went away and discussed with the chief priests and the temple police how he could hand Jesus over to them. They were glad and agreed to give him silver. Again, 30 pieces of silver, the price of a slave. So he accepted the offer and started looking for a good opportunity to betray him to them when the crowd was not present. Then the day of unleavened bread came when the Passover lamb had to be sacrificed. Jesus sent Peter and John, saying, "Go and make preparations for us to eat the Passover." "Where do you want us to prepare it?" they asked him. "Listen," he said to them. "When you've entered the city, a man carrying a water jug will meet you. Follow him into the house he enters. Tell the owner of the house, the teacher asks you, 'Where is the guest room where I can eat the Passover with my disciples?' Then he will show you a large, furnished room upstairs. Make the preparations there." So they went and found it just as he had told them, and they prepared the Passover. When the hour came, he reclined at the table, and the apostles with him. Then he said to them, "I have fervently desired to eat this Passover with you before I suffer. For I tell you, I will not eat it again until it is fulfilled in the kingdom of God." Then he took a cup, and after giving thanks, he said, "Take this and share it among yourselves. For I tell you, from now on, I will not drink of the fruit of the vine until the kingdom of God comes." And he took the bread and gave thanks, broke it, and gave it to them, and said, "This is my body, which is given for you. Do this in remembrance of me." In the same way, he also took the cup after supper and said, how did I lose my spot? There we go. It's one of these days. I apologize. My brain's kind of mushy. Took the bread and broke it. Okay, in the same way, he also took the cup after supper and said, "This cup is the new covenant in my blood, which is poured out for you. But look, the hand of the one betraying me is at the table with me. For the Son of Man will go away as it has been determined. But woe to that man by whom he is betrayed." So they began to argue among themselves which of them it could be who was going to do it. Then a dispute also arose among them about who should be considered the greatest. But he said to them, "The kings of the Gentiles lord it over them, and those who have authority over them have themselves called benefactors. It is not to be like that among you. On the contrary, whoever is greatest among you should be like the youngest, and whoever leads like the one serving. For who is greater, the one at the table or the one serving? Isn't it the one at the table? But I am among you as one who serves, or as the one who serves. You are those who stood by me in my trials. I bestow on you a kingdom, just as my Father bestowed one on me, so that you may eat and drink at my table in my kingdom. And you will sit on thrones judging the 12 tribes of Israel. Simon, Simon, look out. Satan has asked to sift you like wheat, but I have prayed for you, that your faith may not fail. And you, when you have turned back, as in repented, strengthen your brothers. Lord, he told him, I'm ready to go with you both to prison and to death. I tell you, Peter, he said, the rooster will not crow today until you deny 3 times that you know me. He also said to them, when I sent you out without money bag or traveling bag or sandals, did you lack anything? Not a thing, they said. Then he said to them, but now whoever has a money bag should take it, and also a traveling bag. And whoever doesn't have a sword should sell his robe and buy one. For I tell you, what is written must be fulfilled in me. And he was counted among the lawless. Yes, what is written about me is coming to its fulfillment. Lord, they said, look, here are 2 swords. That is enough, he told them. He went out and made his way, as usual, to the Mount of Olives, and the disciples followed him. When he reached the place, he told them, I pray that you may not fall into temptation. Then he withdrew from them about a stone's throw, knelt down and began to pray. Father, if you are willing, take this cup away from me. Nevertheless, not my will, but yours be done. Then an angel from heaven appeared to him, strengthening him. Being in anguish, he prayed more fervently, and his sweat became like drops of blood falling to the ground. Not that they actually became drops of blood, not that they became drops mixed with blood. It became like drops of blood. If you've ever been injured enough that you've dripped blood on the ground, you'll know what it's talking about. Verse 45, when he got up from prayer and came to his disciples, he found them sleeping, exhausted from their grief. Why are you sleeping? He asked them. Get up and pray so that you won't fall into temptation. While he was still speaking, suddenly a mob came, and one of the 12, named Judas, was leading them. He came near to Jesus and kissed him. But Jesus said to him, Judas, are you betraying the Son of Man with a kiss? Then those around him saw what was going to happen, and they asked, Lord, should we strike with the sword? Then one of them struck the high priest's servant, and cut off his right ear. His name is Malchus. I don't know if it's shown in this text. But Jesus responded, no more of this, and touching his ear, he healed him. Then Jesus said to the chief priests, the temple police, and the elders who had come for him, have you come out with swords and clubs as if I were a criminal? Every day while I was with you in the temple, you never laid a hand on me. It's calling out their hypocrisy. But this is your hour and the dominion of darkness. They seized him, led him away, and brought him into the high priest's house. Meanwhile, Peter was following at a distance. They lit a fire in the middle of the courtyard and sat down together, and Peter sat among them. When his servant saw him sitting in the light and looked closely at him, she said, this man was with him too. But he denied it. Woman, I don't know him. After a little while, someone else saw him and said, you're one of them too. I am not, Peter said. About an hour later, another kept insisting, this man certainly was with him, since he also is a Galilean. But Peter said, man, I don't know what you're talking about. Immediately, while he was still speaking, a rooster crowed. Then the Lord turned and looked at Peter. So Peter remembered the word of the Lord, how he had said to him, before the rooster crows today, you will deny me 3 times. And he went outside and wept bitterly. The men who were holding Jesus started mocking and beating him. After blindfolding him, they kept asking, prophesy, who was it that hit you? And they were saying many other blasphemous things to him. When daylight came, the elders of the people, both the chief priests and the scribes, convened and brought him before their Sanhedrin. They said, "If you are the Messiah, tell us." But he said to them, "If I do tell you, you will not believe. And if I ask you, you will not answer. But from now on, the Son of Man will be seated at the right hand of the power of God." Then they all asked, "Are you then the Son of God?" And he said to them, "You say that I am." "Why do we need any more testimony?" they asked, "since we have heard it ourselves from his mouth." And that is all of the text, and that is also all of the notes. So, God willing, we'll be back tomorrow. Behold, the word of the Lord.